What does it take to silence a room full of scorn? The chandeliers glittered above the ballroom, casting golden flecks across the polished floor where guests twirled in their finery. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the air, a symphony of wealth and privilege at my brother-in-law's wedding. I stood near the edge of the crowd, my dress uniform pressed to perfection, the weight of my service medals pinned to my chest. Yet, every glance in my direction carried a whisper of disdain. To them, I was Ethan Cole, the lowly soldier who married above his station, the man who didn't belong in their world of trust funds and tailored suits. And my wife, Clara, stood among them, her lips curled into a smirk that cut deeper than any insult. I had known this day would test me. Clara's family never hid their contempt. Her brother, Marcus, the groom, was the golden child of the Langston dynasty, a hedge fund prodigy marrying a woman whose lineage matched his own. Their world was one of private jets and ivy-covered estates, while mine was sweat-soaked fatigues and dusty battlegrounds. Clara had once called my dedication noble, but tonight, her eyes glinted with something else, amusement, perhaps, or shame. I wasn't sure which hurt more. The reception buzzed with chatter, and I caught fragments of their mockery. "What does she see in him?" a cousin muttered, swirling his champagne. "A soldier, of all things," another scoffed, as if my years of service were a punchline. Clara stood beside her mother, her silk gown shimmering under the lights, and when her eyes met mine, that smirk flickered again. She didn't defend me. She didn't even try. I gripped my glass tighter, the ice clinking softly. I could leave, slip out into the night and spare myself the humiliation. But something held me there, a stubborn spark, a refusal to let their words define me. I had faced worse than their sneers. I had faced gunfire, loss, and the weight of lives depending on my decisions. This was just another battlefield. The speeches began, and Marcus took the stage, all charisma and polished charm. His words dripped with self-assured wit, thanking his guests, his bride, and his family for their unwavering support. Then, his gaze landed on me, and the room seemed to lean in. "And let's not forget Clara's husband, Ethan," he said, his tone laced with mockery. "Our brave soldier, who's probably more at home with a rifle than a wine glass." Laughter rippled through the crowd, sharp and cruel. Clara's smirk widened, and my chest tightened. I could have stayed silent. I could have let the moment pass, let them have their laugh. But something snapped inside me, not anger, but clarity. I wasn't just a soldier. I was a man who had carried the weight of duty, who had seen the best and worst of humanity, and I wasn't about to let their ignorance erase that. I stood, my chair scraping softly against the floor. The laughter faltered, and heads turned. Clara's smirk faded, her eyes narrowing with unease. I walked to the stage, my boots steady on the polished wood, and took the microphone from Marcus. His grin wavered, but he stepped aside, assuming I'd stumble, that I'd prove their point. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice calm but firm, carrying the weight of years spent commanding attention in chaos. "I'm Ethan Cole, the lowly soldier, some of you seem to find so amusing." A murmur ran through the crowd, but I pressed on. "I've spent 10 years serving this country. I've led men and women through places you'll only see in headlines. I've held friends as they took their last breaths, and I've carried their memories home. I don't wear this uniform for applause. I wear it because it's who I am." The room was silent now, the chandelier's light catching the glint of my medals. I turned to Marcus. "You called me brave, but bravery isn't just running into danger. It's standing up when you're told you don't belong. It's choosing to stay, even when it's easier to walk away. My eyes found Clara's, and her face was pale, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Then came the twist I hadn't planned. A woman stood from a table near the back, her movements slow but deliberate. She was older, her hair streaked with silver, and her eyes held a quiet intensity. The crowd parted as she approached the stage, and I recognized her Mrs. Evelyn Hart, a family friend of the Langstons, someone I'd only met in passing. She climbed the steps and stood beside me, her presence commanding the room's attention. "Ethan," she said, her voice steady but warm, "may I say something?" I nodded, stepping back. She took the microphone, her gaze sweeping the crowd. "I've known the Langstons for decades, but tonight, I'm ashamed of what I've seen. This man you mock saved my son's life." A gasp rippled through the room. Clara's hands flew to her mouth. Mrs. Hart continued, her voice trembling with emotion. 3 years ago, in a war zone half a world away, Ethan pulled my son, Captain Daniel Hart, from a burning vehicle under enemy fire. He carried him to safety, stayed with him until help arrived. My boy is alive today because of this lowly soldier. And you dare laugh? The silence was deafening. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, his charm crumbling. Mrs. Hart turned to me, her eyes glistening. "Thank you, Ethan. Not just for my son, but for reminding us what honor looks like." She placed a hand on my arm, then stepped down, leaving the room to grapple with her words. I looked at Clara again. Her smirk was gone, replaced by something I hadn't seen in years: vulnerability. I didn't need her approval, not anymore, but I wanted her to understand. "I'm not here to shame anyone," I said, my voice softer now. "I'm here because I love my wife, and I believe in the promises we made. But respect isn't given, it's earned. And I've earned mine." I handed the microphone back to Marcus and walked off the stage. The room remained silent, but as I passed, a few guests nodded, their expressions shifting from scorn to something closer to admiration. Mrs. Hart squeezed my hand as I passed her table, whispering, "You did good, son." Clara caught up to me outside, her heels clicking on the stone path. "Ethan," she called, her voice breaking. I stopped but didn't turn. "I'm sorry," she said, and when I finally faced her, tears streaked her face. "I didn't know about Daniel. About any of it. I let them get to me. I studied her, the woman I'd loved through every deployment, every doubt. Clara, I don't need you to fight my battles. I need you to stand with me." She nodded, stepping closer. "I will. I promise." The night air was cool, the stars bright above the estate. I didn't know if Clara's promise would hold, if her family would ever see me as more than a soldier. But as we stood there, her hands slipping into mine, I felt a weight lift. I had spoken my truth, and for the first time in that gilded world, I felt seen. The wedding continued behind us, the music starting again, but it felt distant, like a memory already fading. Mrs. Hart's words echoed in my mind, a reminder that valor isn't measured by wealth or status, but by the lives you touch. I had fought for my place, not with fists or guns, but with words and truth. And in that moment, I knew I was more than enough.